Okay, let's dive into a story of love and loss that is so raw, it's almost hard to believe. It comes straight from Elizabeth Gilbert's memoir, and it's a journey that takes us to the absolute edge of despair and then somehow all the way back to a place of unexpected peace.
And this right here, this is a message from beyond the grave. It's from Rayya Elias to Elizabeth Gilbert, and it's pretty much the mission statement for this entire story. Go full punk rock with it. That means no holding back, no trying to save face, just the raw, unflinching truth. So our story kicks off with a real paradox. We have a wildly successful author who, on the surface, has everything she ever wanted, but inside, she feels completely lost. She's caught in this lifelong pattern she calls womanly overgiving, this constant, exhausting need to manage, fix, and control everyone and everything around her, just to feel a tiny bit safe herself. And then, Rayya Elias walks into her life. Rayya's a hairdresser, an artist, a total force of nature who looked at the world with absolutely zero filter. Their connection was instant, it was electric. And for the first time ever, that constant, low-level terror that Elizabeth had lived with her whole life, in Rayya's presence, it just vanished. Now this brings us to the absolute core of their story, codependency. You can see the definition here. It's this total abandonment of yourself to fixate on someone else, with this deep-down belief that if you can just heal them, you'll somehow be healed too. This wasn't just a small part of their relationship, it was the engine driving the whole thing, for better and, as we'll see, for worse. So, of course, this incredibly deep friendship ignites into love. It was this magnetic pull that felt less like a choice and more like gravity. After years of sort of orbiting each other, they finally collided. And the realization was simple and overwhelming. It's you. It couldn't possibly be anyone but you.
But just as this incredible love story is getting started, it gets hit with a crisis so devastating it threatens to shatter absolutely everything. This is where their beautiful connection descends into what Gilbert herself calls a perfectly engineered nightmare.
First, the gut punch. Rayya is diagnosed with terminal cancer. As you'd expect, their love deepens in the face of this. But then, the unthinkable happens. Rayya, who had been sober for years, relapses. And just like that, they're not just fighting a disease anymore, they are trapped in the dizzying, spiraling chaos of active addiction.
And you think it can't get any worse? Well, the universe just keeps piling it on. In the middle of all of this, the cancer diagnosis, the drug relapse, Gilbert's bank account gets hacked. Every single penny she has is just gone. And then the floor completely drops out from under them. They get evicted. Their home, their sanctuary, is sold. And Gilbert is left scrambling to find a new place to live while trying to care for her dying, actively using partner. Any sense of safety is just obliterated. And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the nightmare. The one person on the entire planet who had ever made her feel safe was now the source of her greatest danger. Rayya wasn't just sick anymore. She was an active, abusive addict. And Gilbert was trapped right there with her. You know, it's in the absolute depths of this hell that a radical new thought starts to form. What if this wasn't just random, meaningless suffering happening to her? What if, as she says, this was a perfectly engineered nightmare, designed with a purpose, to finally wake her up? Well, this perfectly engineered nightmare, it does its job. It pushes Gilbert so far past her limits, systematically taking away every tool she'd ever used to control her world, until she's left completely and utterly broken. She ends up at the ultimate rock bottom, standing at the edge of a river, seriously thinking about ending it all. It is a moment of total, absolute despair. But right there, in that darkest of places, a voice cuts through the noise, clear as a bell. You have to call for help.
But that voice doesn't just offer hope. It presents a brutal choice. As a famous author, her first instinct is to hide this mess, to protect her public image. But the voice is crystal clear. You can protect your anonymity, or you can get well, but you cannot do both. She chooses to get well. Now, for a woman who spent her entire life trying to control everything, this meant doing the most terrifying thing imaginable: surrendering. She turns to the structured, unfamiliar world of 12-step recovery programs. And in these rooms, she discovers a solution that turns her whole world worldview on its head.
The answer wasn't to try harder or be smarter or control more. No, it was to do the complete opposite. Let go of control, share her deepest shame out loud with other people, and get out of her own head by trying to help someone else.
But honestly, the biggest breakthrough of her entire recovery had nothing to do with fixing things with Rayya. The real journey wasn't about what was happening on the outside. It was about what needed to happen on the inside. It was about finally learning to parent herself.
For the first time, she really meets the part of herself she'd been running from her whole life, her inner child, who she calls Lizzie. See, she'd always seen Lizzie as the problem, the needy, clingy, anxious part that messed everything up. But the great revelation? Lizzie wasn't the problem at all. Lizzie was the solution, the source of all her creativity, her joy, her light. It had been right there all along, just waiting for her to take care of it. And she has this stunning realization that her lifelong hunt for a savior, for a romantic partner to fix everything, was actually a profound, repeating pattern of self-betrayal. Every single time she threw herself at someone new, hoping they would make her feel safe, she was abandoning the one person who needed her the most, that little girl inside. And this becomes her new purpose in life. The goal is no longer to find a grown-up to take care of her. The goal is to become the steady, sober, loving adults that her own inner child had been desperately waiting for her whole life.
This massive internal shift from seeking a savior outside to being the savior inside, it changes everything. It leads her to a state of being she never, ever thought was possible for her.
She finally finds peace. Not in another person or a new city or some big achievement, but right inside herself. A quiet, steady contentment she calls a world called enough. A world where she finally has enough, and more importantly, where she finally is enough.
And so, this incredible journey leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. What if you just gave up the chase? What if you traded in all those relentless hungers for a life of simple peace and dignity? What might that actually look like for you?